So, one of the main storylines to Saturday's game against Iowa State will be redshirt sophomore quarterback Rocco Becht, son of new West Virginia Hall of Famer Anthony Becht, the best tight end in school history, facing off against his father's team, West Virginia. For the fan base, and I'm speaking on West Virginia here, who more or less would like to pride itself on having more legacy players on West Virginia's squad, perhaps in the same vein as, say, a Penn State or a Notre Dame or Ohio State. You always seem as if, his a given player on one of those three teams or others across the country, his dad played for that team, his uncle played for his team, grandfather, etc., etc. One can only help but wonder, why isn't Rocco Becht a Mountaineer? Now, while it can't be directly connected as the above all, end all reason, it was simply because West Virginia and head coach Neal Brown wanted current backup quarterback Nicco Marchiol more than Rocco Becht. So the question for today's show and today's debate is, was that the right decision? So let me go back, and if you're not a recruiting junkie, and I took some research in doing this, and I want to get this story as accurate as possible, so I reached out to Keenan Cummings from Rivals.com to kind of accurately portray to you what did kind of happen behind the scenes, as he does a great job for West Virginia recruiting. So I'm telling an accurate story here. Now, the recruiting journeys for both these players, Becht and Marchiol. So you got to go all the way back to the fall of 2020 for the 2020 high school season for both a junior Rocco Becht and a junior Nicco Marchiol. Beck was part of a 4-6 Wiregrass Ranch football team that's in 7A, the highest classification in the state of Florida, but was just not a very good team. Played in 8 games, 101 completions for 189 yard attempts, 1550 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions with negative rushing yardage. Some really would have considered him small, even at a 6'1", 185 pounds. Definitely has done some physical maturing since his time in Ames, Iowa, now as a third-year player. But at that point in time, a bit small, kind of reminded you of a lot of what Garrett Green was bringing to the table for West Virginia's offense coming down the road. And at the end of his junior year, he was just a 3-star, nationally unranked prospect with the only P5 offers being, I don't actually know, I can look at his total offers, by the end of the time, by the time he was signed on Rivals. But at the end, he still only had 3 P5 offers. Wake Forest, now Ole Miss is a good program, and Iowa State. Now, from the flip side for Nicco Marchiol, after the fall of 2020, he played for a 10-3 Hamilton High School football team in the state of Arizona that lost in the 2020 Open Division football state championship game. Played in 8 games, 117 completions on 169 attempts for 17 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, did have 7 interceptions, but had listen to this, 535 yards rushing on 73 carries and 6 touchdowns. Now, by the time January of 2021 rolls around, Marchiol, and a big-bodied guy, 6'2", 220, 4-star quarterback, commits to Florida State. Big get for the Seminoles in January of 2021. Now, by April of 2021, Beck commits to Iowa State. So whether or not he was, jumping on what he perceived to be his best offer, thinking West Virginia wasn't going to be coming around, West Virginia had all of its eggs in the Nicco Marchiol basket, and it really paid off. Continuing to be recruited, I guess one of his best high school friends played baseball on the West Virginia baseball team, and just had the positive vibe that so many of these commits say that they get from the kind of family atmosphere, feeling that sense of wantedness, And really, Marchiol was just a perfect fit, I feel like. He decommits from Florida State prior to his West Virginia visit in June of 2021 and commits to West Virginia shortly after his official visit. So that's kind of the recruiting story, is that West Virginia wanted Nicco Marchiol, and for one reason or another, whether it was size, stature, just thinking that he wasn't necessarily good enough to play at the P4 level, that West Virginia passed over Rocco Becht, despite him being the son of Anthony Becht. So, the playing careers so far for both, for Becht, again, Big 12, 2023 Big 12 Freshman of the Year, a second-team freshman All-American, leading Iowa State out of the doldrums of what was expected to be a terrible, perhaps even winless 2023 season after Hunter Deckers was suspended, as well as Iowa State starting running back due to a gambling cheating scandal just about a week or two before the season started in fall camp. So Becht took Iowa State to great heights in 2023, better than what was expected, overachieved, and now he has them undefeated, nationally, number 11 in the country, and trying to contend for a Big 12 title. On the other hand, for Marchiol, who has been the backup, or 1B to 1A, if you want to go that route, with Garrett Green being the fifth-year senior. Now Marchiol's contributed in relief in wins. The first big one for him was at Oklahoma State in 2022, last year against Pitt at home in the backyard brawl, and then Oklahoma State in this past week against the Cowboys, knocking through the first touchdown for the Mountaineers in the first quarter. Now he started and won the Texas Tech game last year at home in a rainy Morgantown, dealing with the outer bands of a hurricane. It was just a nasty game against a Texas Tech team that played better defense earlier on in the season than they did late. So if you want to argue who's had the better playing career up to this point, I feel like it's pretty close. Pretty close, despite Becht being the full-time starter. Marchiol has had his big moments. I think collectively you can put up against, because he just hasn't had as many opportunities to get to start the early playing time. Now, both players' college careers have yet to be completely written, and I feel like Saturday's matchup, despite it being Becht versus Garrett Green in this situation at quarterback and not Marchiol, but who knows what will happen with injuries or the way the game unfolds. It could be a situation where Marchiol gets in some spot in some situation. This is going to be a very important data point in the debate between the two players, Becht and Marchiol. West Virginia does not play Iowa State in 2025. The two teams square off again in 2026 in Ames, when Becht and Marchiol would both be redshirt seniors if they're both around, if one or both of them potentially go to the NFL, or do they stay all 5 seasons of their eligibility. Now, I think the world of Nicco Marchiol. I think he is a great ambassador for West Virginia University and the football program itself. What he does for West Virginia University's children's medicine, volunteering in the community. He's been a part of West Virginia's fifth quarter program and getting some international exposure and pre-professional opportunities. That's great. Like, that's awesome, like, kind of extracurricular pre-professional resume building experience for him. But also just what he's done, I think, like, the donations as part of, or NIL, or just, he's a really good off the field guy, I feel like. I really do also wonder if Rocco and the Becht family have any hard feelings. Maybe not directly targeted at West Virginia, but perhaps the Neal Brown and staff administration. There was a social media schedule release video this past summer in which Anthony Becht put on an Iowa State ball cap when talking about that West Virginia game. So, kind of humorous in a way. I don't think anything that should be taken as any sort of big deal. But when you have a former, best player ever at your position, now Hall of Famer, and does he feel slighted? I feel as if Saturday's going to be a bit awkward. Um, I feel like Rocco's going to have this added motivation of not just beating his dad's team on the night in which his dad's inducted into his school's Hall of Fame, but also indiscriminately the team that passed over him in recruiting that he probably would have committed to had he received the offer. And if Anthony knows that, and that's what he was hoping for, almost, who knows, maybe since his son's birth, thinking that he would walk in the same footsteps and be the gunslinger for his college football program when his son became 18 to 22. Now it's not happening. It's because of Garrett Green being first and foremost the starter, but then it's because West Virginia wanted Nicco Marchiol instead over Rocco Becht. So are there some sour grapes? Are there hard feelings? I don't know. I can only speculate. And if not, and that's not a talking point, I think that's a little unnatural. I think it would only be human for the entire Becht family to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder or edge or just a little bit of slight disdain for West Virginia. I don't know, his personal schedule. Who knows what happens? Was that, or, did he not want to come for that game against Kansas for the Hall of Fame recognition? Instead, he knew he was going to be coming to watch Rocco in Morgantown. I'm sure the fans love Anthony Becht. Don Nehlen loves him. His teammates are all going to be there to support him. Like, that's huge. That's awesome. And love having him a part of the fold and a great ambassador for WVU at the same time. And I don't think there's any hard feelings there, again, for the state, the people, this logo on my chest. Being in this stadium is probably going to bring back a lot of memories for him. But the current administration and staff, I don't know. That's just the kind of something I'm kind of reading between the lines here. I'm really rooting for Nicco. I think his yet is best to come. I'm happy that he chose West Virginia, and I do think that West Virginia, Neal Brown did right by picking Marchiol over Becht, despite not recruiting the son of a legend. I'm going to operate by the same adage of rooting for Rocco Becht in all of his games in which he does not play West Virginia. I'll root for the same outcome for him as I did for Alan Bowman or Jalen Daniels or Eli Holstein or Miles Burkett or Drew Aller. And that's, I hope West Virginia beats you. But any other Saturday, hey, hope you do well. So it's going to be awkward. I do think the Marchiol versus Becht debate is just begun, kind of started. I feel like last year as Becht became the starter, and it's going to continue for really the next 2.5 seasons. And again, an Iowa State win Saturday in a game in which Becht perhaps balls out could go a long way in the way of saying that Becht would have been the better choice. But I think it's Marchiol. I think that he is going to be he's a great quarterback now, going to be a great quarterback of the future. His evolution of his passing game and just that throw that he had in the Oklahoma State game was a laser, and I have no qualms. And this isn't a knock against Garrett Green at all. I love Garrett. This is Garrett Green's legacy year. This is it. You got to give kudos to Nicco Marchiol for sticking it around. Not very many quarterbacks in today's world of college football. And also got to credit Country Roads Trust and you, the fans, who make the donations to Country Roads Trust to make a very generous, very, very maybe above fair market value offer for Nicco Marchiol, him accepting it, sticking around, and putting this program, the old gold and blue, and the name on the front of the chest before the name on the back of the jersey, and him sticking around for 3 seasons, not being the true starter. So only can hope for the best for him in 2025 and beyond. Again, still anything can happen health-wise to Garrett Green that potentially Marchiol gets involved for extended periods of time. But as of right now, it's not Marchiol's time just yet. Becht kind of getting that jump ahead a bit because of him getting the opportunity for starting reps and, being the starter for Iowa State. So, very interesting. Who do you take? Do you take Marchiol? Do you take Becht? Do you think Neal Brown made the right decision here? Are you surprised at how good Rocco Becht is? Did you expect that if you're a recruiting junkie and thinking that, he would have been some, I have another phrase, but I'll save it. Did you think that he was going to be this good for the Cyclones? And what do you think are his prospects for the future? I think he's just found the right fit, right program, culture, everything. Worked really, really hard and had more talent. Has more talent now, I feel like, than when he did as a high school junior, when a bulk of the recruiting is done at the high school level to get these commitments. So who knows? I'm happy to have number 8 in the old gold and blue. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog. I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. Love to know your comments here on YouTube. Like this video so more fans can see it around YouTube, and I'd love to have you as a subscriber to my channel. Hail West Virginia. Let's go.